This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, January 8th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. This morning, the nation and its leaders continue to grapple with the deadly events of Wednesday when pro-Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building. Now, a second member of President Trump's cabinet has quit, saying her decision was fueled by the president's rhetoric. Paul Strand reports on the demands for the president to resign.
Demands for the president to resign have mounted even as a growing number of U.S. House Democrats, some 200 according to media accounts, say they'd impeach the president. One very notable call for his resignation came from a Wall Street Journal editorial. If Mr. Trump wants to avoid a second impeachment, his best path would be to take personal responsibility and resign. It adds this might also stem the flood of White House and cabinet resignations that are understandable as acts of conscience. And the number of those resignations has also been growing. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao have now stepped down in protest. They joined several others, including former acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Now special envoy to Northern Ireland, he told CNBC, "I can't do it, I can't stay."
It's a small job, it's a part-time gig, but it's all I've got in the administration. I called Mike Pompeo last night, left him a note, told him that I'd be resigning from that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more of my friends resign.
And the death toll from Wednesday's riots grew again when Capitol Hill police officer Brian Sicknick died Thursday night after being injured during confrontations with protesters. His death will be investigated as a homicide. Sicknick's death came as the fallout grows among Capitol Hill security officials from the violent takeover of the Capitol building by what some are calling domestic terrorists. The chief of the Capitol Police has agreed to resign before President-elect Joe Biden's January 20th inauguration. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms has stepped down, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the House Sergeant-at-Arms will also resign. Meanwhile, former Attorney General William Barr is blasting the president, telling the Associated Press Trump's conduct Wednesday was a betrayal of his office and supporters. Barr added, orchestrating a mob to pressure Congress is inexcusable. And some have taken another tactic, calling for top White House officials to use the 25th Amendment to oust Trump.
All indications are that the president has become unmoored, not just from his duty, nor even his oath, but from reality itself. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment allows a majority of the cabinet and the vice president to assume the duties of the office of presidency until the president is able to himself. It's time to invoke the 25th Amendment and to end this nightmare.
But that move's an unlikely long shot, with Vice President Mike Pence reportedly opposed. Amidst all this, President Trump put out a video Thursday night, finally calling for a smooth transition of power. He also condemned the protesters who took over the Capitol building.
Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation.
Despite the president's remarks, the political damage has been done. Now the question is, in elections in the years ahead, what impact will the Capitol chaos have on Trump and the Republicans? Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Israel is working to stop the spread of the coronavirus by increasing the restrictions on its third national lockdown. This last lockdown started just 12 days ago, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saw the need for greater restrictions.
Hospitals are warning us that we are entering the most dangerous wave since the outbreak of the plague. The Ministry of Health and the experts warn us that we are in a state of emergency and that if we do not act immediately, hundreds of Israelis will die and maybe even more.
The enhanced lockdown will continue for at least 2 more weeks. Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Jerusalem to discuss the new measures. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. So what do the new restrictions mean for everyday living in Israel?
Well, Ephraim, for everyday living, first of all, you can't travel more than a half a mile from your home unless you're going perhaps to the grocery store, the pharmacy, or, of course, a hospital. You may be seeing checkpoints. I've seen 2 already today as I've been traveling around, just monitoring people, making sure they're not violating the lockdown right now. A bit surreal. Most businesses are closed. And traffic, as you can imagine, is very reduced. So this is what it's going to be like here for another 2 weeks here in Israel.
So what are officials blaming this latest surge on?
Well, everyone, one of the things they're blaming on is the new strain of the coronavirus coming from England. There's another one coming from South Africa. They want to make sure that those new viruses or strains of the virus don't spread throughout Israel. Also, some people probably not following protocol and increase of the instances of the COVID. So those two reasons, I think, are some of the reasons for the lockdown right now.
I know there are some who oppose these measures. What are their arguments against it, and is there any truth to it?
Well, it's a debate going on in the U.S., here in Israel as well. There's a group called the Public Emergency Council for the Coronavirus Crisis. Their argument is the cure is actually worse than the sickness itself. They note increase of suicides, domestic violence, the economic devastation. All this combined, they think, is actually worse than the lockdown itself. What they prescribe is that they want to make sure that the vulnerable, the elderly, people with comorbidities are safe, but the rest of the population in society would just follow protocol and the coronavirus precautions that everybody is taking right now.
What about vaccine distribution? How's that going?
Well, they're kind of leading the world, Ephraim. Right now, they're calling it Operation Back to Life. That's what Netanyahu is calling it. They're going to get millions of vaccines on Sunday. They've already vaccinated 1.7 million Israelis, 20% of the population. They want to have everyone vaccinated by March, and they want to be the first country in the world to go back to normal, and they're actually on their way to go ahead and do that.
Really quickly before we let you go, what's coming up on Jerusalem Dateline this week?
Well, we're going to have an update on the threat of Iran. We also have a story from the Garden of Gethsemane, a unique find from the first century. That means the time of Jesus right there. And also a story about how the prophetic changes in Israel. It's called Israel Rising, a new book, or a book that talks about the remarkable prophetic changes in the last 70 years of Israel's existence as a nation.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I want to remind you at home that you can see Jerusalem Dateline this evening on the CBN News Channel. In October, fighting broke out between two former Soviet countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan. The short war resulted in more than 5,000 dead and 100,000 displaced. As Shakulta now reports, a ceasefire ended the fighting in November, but Armenia has been racked by ongoing strife since then.
Winter in Armenia. The cold weather might be brutal, but the citizens of this historically Christian nation make it through by drawing on warm traditions of faith and family. Celebrating Christmas on December 25th started back in 336 AD when Emperor Constantine of the Holy Roman Empire declared that day to be the day Jesus' birth would be celebrated. But here in Armenia, they were celebrating Jesus' birth on January 6th, more than 3 decades earlier. That's the day we now call the Epiphany in the United States. And they still do it that way here today, more than 1,600 years later.
We celebrate Christmas on the eve of Christmas, is the night of the January 5th. And that's when we celebrate the candlelight liturgy, and we announce the birth of Christ. And the next day in the morning, January 6th, again, we have liturgies at the churches all over the world.
More than 95% of Armenians claim Christianity, and so religious holidays like this one are very important here, following traditions passed down by the Armenian Apostolic Church for millennia. This is the Hagar-Sin Monastery in the northern part of Armenia in a town called Dilijan. And Christians have been celebrating Christ's birth at this spot in that church behind me for over 1,000 years. This year's celebration is a little subdued, and there's a reason for that. We talked to one of the priests here to find out why.
It's about our existence, our identity, our everything.
He's not talking about the Armenian church, though that is central to life here in Armenia. He's talking about their homeland, part of which was just lost in a short but intense conflict with their eastern neighbor, Azerbaijan. Starting in September 2020, the Azeri army moved in to take over lands where Armenians have lived for thousands of years, and the loss is deeply felt among the people here.
It's traumatic, let's say, and we still need time to truly analyze and understand the whole what happened to us and why it happened, and make a kind of strong commitment for revival.
This year, Armenia is not really celebrating the special holidays, the New Year's and Christmas in a festive way, because as you know, Armenia was hit by a devastating war in 2020, which left us with heavy losses. We lost thousands of young lives. We lost our historic lands.
Normally, the capital city of Yerevan is heavily decorated with lights for the Christmas season. But this year, between the COVID virus and the war, the mood is subdued. Nevertheless, these worshipers are putting their faith in God for the future.
This is a moment of mourning, this is a moment of reflection, and this is a moment of also appreciating what we have. Also, this birth of Christ is allowing us to think about the rebirth of our nation and of our dreams, and hopefully being able to stand up again and protect our land.
From Armenia, Merry Christmas. I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Lunchtime, it's a phrase that is causing more stress than relief. Straight ahead, why millennials are called the sandwich generation and the role they play in the pandemic. Stay with us.
Before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch the Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Working from home, teaching children at home, caring for vulnerable parents, the COVID-19 pandemic has upended the lives of millions of millennials. Now, actually, 40% of them are part of what's being called the new sandwich generation. So what's likely to be the long-term toll on these families? Caitlin Burke has this story.
When COVID-19 first took hold in the U.S., Carla Pratico's priority immediately shifted to her parents.
Both of my parents are older. They're baby boomers. You know, my dad is wheelchair bound and my mom is his full-time caregiver. So it also was like, you know what, if something happens, like let's say, God forbid, something happens to my dad, well, I wouldn't be able to see him or go visit. That was part of it, was just being available and being down to help my mom.
The 60-plus group is considered high risk in a COVID-19 world, even if they're otherwise completely healthy. According to a New York Life study, that's thrusting millennials into the role of caretaker at an accelerated rate.
The study finds 40% of millennials are now likely to be caring for an elderly parent, compared with 34% of Gen Xers and 13% of boomers.
The interesting thing with the pandemic is that we've had many caregivers who were not in caregiving situations before, but now their loved ones are, being very, very careful.
Caregiving expert Amy Goyer says young caregivers face unique challenges.
The majority of them are working, so they're juggling the caregiving with their work roles. And now with the pandemic, many are working at home. They may be raising a young family, and so they are also dealing with that.
Pratico would help act as full-time caretaker for her dad to give her mom a break. She found it nearly impossible to juggle work with his care. After 6 months, other family members stepped in to help, and the Praticos decided to go back home to New York City. Still, research shows a majority of millennials predict they will continue providing financial, housing, or caregiving support even after the pandemic ends, a factor that could take a long-term toll. 28-year-old Theron Robinson has been a caregiver for more than 20 years. Doctors diagnosed his mother with a terminal autoimmune disease when he was just in middle school. Incredibly driven, Robinson worked to juggle a career with his caregiving responsibilities. Then, the pandemic changed the game. Suddenly, keeping his mom safe meant staying home. Going online is a blessing for Robinson and many other millennials.
Technology is just amazing. For example, on Facebook, I follow 3 different groups for caregivers, and I follow 3 different groups for her autoimmune diseases. So those people are a huge support because I get so much advice from those people who've been caregivers 30, 20, 15, 5 years.
The trend of millennials stepping in to help aging family members is only expected to grow. Experts say it's imperative for this generation to begin factoring that into their financial plans, as this pandemic has already highlighted how important it is to prepare for the unexpected. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Still ahead, the athletic world staying on the court and on the field, but voicing frustrations off. Straight ahead, how athletes are reacting to the storming of the U.S. Capitol this week. Stay with us.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Reaction continues today, 2 days after protesters stormed the U.S. Capitol building. Boston Celtics basketball player Jaylen Brown had this to say to the news media following Wednesday's events.
Speak to some of the things that's been going on in our society. It reminds me of what Dr. Martin Luther King has said, that there is two split different Americas. In one America, you get killed by sleeping in your car, selling cigarettes, or playing in your backyard. And in another America, you get to storm the Capitol. And no tear gas, no massive arrests, none of that. So I think it's obvious. It's 2021. I don't think anything has changed. We want to still acknowledge that. We want to still push for the change that we're looking for. But as of yet, we have not seen it. We want to continue to keep conversations alive and do our part.
CBN Sports Director Sean Brown is here with more on this story. So, Sean, how are athletes and the rest of the sports world reacting to Wednesday's incident?
Hey, good morning, Ephraim. As you just heard, that's the tempo, that's the message. I mean, players are talking about the enormous double standard that was on display on Wednesday. I mean, you can look at video, you can look at a lot of the footage, and what we're seeing here is unprecedented. I mean, pro-Trump supporters breaching the Capitol, breaking windows, crawling inside, taking pictures all around, just tearing up the Capitol building. One protester making his way into Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's office and taking pictures with his feet up on the desk. If this were a Black Lives Matter protest, it would have been handled much differently. Protesters probably would not even made it to the steps. And as you just heard, there's a serious double standard here, and that's the frustration. During the Black Lives Matter movement or protests, especially after the death of George Floyd, those protesters were met with police and the National Guard fully equipped in body armor, prepared for anything. And then you look at Wednesday's events, there's a serious contrast, and that's the frustration.
Some saying, they suffered severe punishment for just taking a knee, and then we see this happen. Now, against the backdrop of protesters storming the U.S. Capitol building, there were still major games that were played that same night. Was there any talk of some of those games not happening?
Yes, there were 11 games scheduled. All 11 games were played on Wednesday. There was a little bit of talk from a couple of players regarding whether or not they should do it, but they believed it was in the best interest of the game to continue to play. And as you saw, taking a knee is still, one of the peaceful ways to show, their feelings about what's happening, outside of the world of basketball, specifically systemic racism and police brutality.
So before we let you go, what's happening this weekend on Going the Distance?
Well, season 3 of Going the Distance will start next week. And we're going to continue bringing you stories of athletes and all the things that they're doing. And this season, we're really focusing on closing the gap between succeeding and not succeeding, because we always quit too short right before we get ready to succeed and achieve our goals. That's a lot of times where we quit. And so we're going to be focusing on really that's what Going the Distance is all about. Don't quit. Keep moving forward. And so we're going to be talking to athletes and coaches about how they do it day in and day out.
A lesson we can all use for sure. I want to remind you that you can catch Going the Distance with Sean Brown weekends on the CBN News Channel, Saturdays at 6:30, Sundays at 7:30. Of course, both of those are Eastern Standard Time. Coming up, time to skate and smell the flowers. Just ahead, the creative idea an ice skating rink is using to stay open. We've got the story for you. Stay with us.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Skating rink owner in Poland says he's found a way to stay open amid a coronavirus lockdown. Operate as a flower shop instead. He came up with the idea after the country imposed a 3-week closure of businesses, including hotels, ski slopes, and skating rinks. The plan is simple. Customers purchase access to the rink, now called a flower warehouse, then choose from a box of flowers in the middle of the ice. The customers don't have to wear skates. They can jump, crawl, or go on all fours if they like. This loophole may not last long. City officials say he's violating the pandemic restrictions, and it will have to stop. Well, time now for your Friday Faithful. And today is a great day to leave you with this reminder. God is faithful. He promises to never leave you. He's never lost a battle, and guess what? He never will. Remember this, he can do all things except fail. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday. It is possible, even in the most trying times. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you for watching. I want to remind you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, also at cbnnews.com. Hope you have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you right back here come Monday. Goodbye. God bless everybody.